It is rumored that the Great British Cup of Tea is simple and straightforward, but it is not. It requires a delicate balance between technique and time. There are a great variety of black teas on the market served hot in the British style, but not all teas are created equal. There is, on the one hand, Darjeeling, which is hardly worth boiling the water for. And then on the other hand, you have Yorkshire Gold or Irish breakfast tea that require a knife and a fork to consume. In those great variety of teas, there are only really two major categories. And I want to explain those before we go forward in how to make a great British cup of tea. First of all, there is this kind of tea. This is the formal tea. If it comes with a saucer, it is to be drunk with delicacy and on special occasions, sometimes at a friend's house on a semi-formal occasion, or possibly a cream tea somewhere in Devonshire. You might have the good fortune to be invited to the palace to drink tea like this with the Queen. Here is a tip that you need to know. Tea is never drunk like this, with your little finger waving around in the air like an errant flag. Only pretentious people do this, and it is a sign of snobbery and arrogance, so tuck your little finger in. Remember, the great British tea is never pretentious. And then there is this kind of tea. This kind of tea is drunk in Great Britain all over the country frequently every day, sometimes as many as 5 or 6 times a day by an individual. It comes like this because it is nourishment. This is a vital cup of tea that renews and reinvigorates the soul, the spirit, and the body of the person that consumes it. And it is a part of what makes the great British workforce go forward. This kind of tea also requires to be made in a proper and orderly fashion if it is to do what it is supposed to do. There is one other variety of tea that I am reluctant to speak of, or category should I say, and it is the emergency cup of tea. This cup of tea is administered to those who are in some kind of distress. It is the cup of tea that comes in every British conversation where someone in anguish is explaining how difficult things are or how they are in great pain and are struggling with some issue. The answer invariably is, let me put the kettle on. First of all, let me tell you what tea is not. This is not tea. A tea bag with a string on it in lukewarm water is not tea. It is not Great British tea. It is a facsimile of tea, but tastes nothing like tea. So don't be fooled. If your tea comes with a string, reject it immediately. Now, all of us have done this. And this is a substitutionary way for making a cup of tea. It is often done in an emergency or when someone is on the run, and it will do in a pinch. But it really doesn't qualify to be called a cup of tea. This is a cuppa, and it is a semi-emergency way of preparing tea. And that leads me to another comment. Tea is never microwaved. There is no microwave in tea. Unlike its transatlantic cousin, the cup of coffee, Tea requires water that is on a rolling boil, freshly extracted from the faucet, the spigot, the tap, whichever term you choose to use. Now, it is important to understand that the success of a cup of tea depends upon the temperature of the water as it comes in contact with the tea itself. And since the boiling water extracts the best infusion from the tea bag, you're going to need to warm the pot. Take some of the freshly boiled water, placing it in the teapot. It is important that you swirl the hot water in the teapot. A swishing motion is certainly not in keeping with the dignity of a cup of tea. Remember, we are not in a hurry. Swirl, don't swish. At this point in the process of making tea, a great urge will overpower you to throw some tea bags into the teapot and then to pour the water directly onto the tea bags immediately. However, this would be wrong. Resist that impulse. Now that the pot is warmed, you must go back and boil the kettle again. This is extremely important. Place into your teapot one bag for each person and one for the pot. The water may now be poured onto the tea. Remember, not too much water, not too little water, and then the pot must be stirred. The British believe in stirring things up. This is a great opportunity to exercise a great British talent. We have, as part of our tea making equipment, a cozy. It is not a koozie. Please, please. The cozy goes on the teapot. Now, you may not see a cozy in delicate homes, but in the homes of people that take tea seriously, the cozy is an important piece of equipment that helps the infusion move rapidly and quickly, and also to ensure that the tea that is dispensed is still good and hot. There's nothing like drinking cold tea. I mean, nothing like drinking cold tea. Tea takes about 3 to 5 minutes to brew. If you brew it too short of a time, it will not be strong enough to invigorate and satisfy your taste. If you brew it too long, over 5 minutes, it will become what my father called stewed. If you want to know what stewed tea tastes like, go to your laundry basket and pull out the first item you find and stick it in your mouth. And that's what stewed tea tastes. This is where things can go dramatically and spectacularly wrong. Depending on what kind of tea you are drinking and what the category is, as we explained earlier, you will find yourself needing to put milk in the cup first. A splash of milk. On the formal occasions, milk will come in a lovely little jug, which will make your heart sing with joy. However, when you are drinking tea as nourishment, it will probably come out of a jug like this. And that's okay, as long as you are not seen by your neighbors. It is a shame for an Englishman to pour milk into his cup from a jug. That's why he does it in secret. Another thing that needs to be noted is that we don't want any of this semi-skimmed, half-skimmed, nothing but water kind of milk for our tea. Full cream milk is required. for a good cup of tea. The robust flavor of the tea will not be generated out of weak milk. No weak milk in our tea, please. The milk goes in first because it has the effect of changing the flavor of the tea if it is put in afterwards. So before we pour this tea, we are going to stir it again in the great British fashion of stirring things up. And then we are going to pour the tea on the milk. Always replace the cozy and make sure that the lid is on the teapot, because my dad always said that if you left the teapot lid off, there was going to be a row in the house. Really. Tea requires sugar. Some people drink tea without sugar because they're concerned about their health and about their weight, and because they don't want to be thought of in a poor light among their friends. But courageous tea drinkers put sugar in their tea. Stop counting. Again, in the great British fashion, stir the tea. And as long as your tea is in a vessel like this, you can drink it standing up, walking around, anywhere but in your car. Thank you for joining me for this video on how to make great British tea. Don't forget, stay calm.